Yesterday, we were really getting into everything. Unlike Joe Scarborough, we were explaining it to you. We weren't just saying, I can't understand this, and just throwing it aside and attacking Republicans, and now attacking John Durham.
It is so confounding and so hard to follow, which is kind of interesting, John Heilman. This pleading, which is indecipherable, unless you have an agenda and you want to shoot first and ask questions later, which is what they did legally. This is confusing as the initial story. I remember when the initial story came out and I read through it and I was like, what? And everybody did. That's why nobody paid attention to it the first time, because it was so convoluted, talking about DNS lookups.
This is not so hard to explain, Joe Scarborough. Tech Executive One and his associates exploited this arrangement by mining the EOP's DNS traffic and other data for the purposes of gathering derogatory information about Donald Trump.
So he supposedly read all of this, right? Which, again, it's pages. It's not like he read a book yesterday.
I spent yesterday reading through this stuff, reading through Durham's indictment seriously. I don't know
for hours
who wrote that, because it was gobbledygook. There weren't dates.
The dates are right there. September 19th, 2016, 2 months before the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The defendant, a lawyer at large international law firm. This is Sussman. He went to the FBI. He went to the CIA. So he did 2 months. He did it 2 months before the election. Then they say he went back. Again, this is on, the dates are there, in February of 2017. So there's dates. The dates that he went in. There's also dates on when the mining occurred, the 2014 through 2016.
I read it this morning and had no problem understanding what is in it. And you ask about a reaction from Washington, D.C. They understand this too, Jay. They just don't like what's in it. And I will predict for you, Adam Schiff and others, here's the strategy they're going to take. Because they want to distract from the narrative here, they're going to start attacking John Durham. You watch, yes. Jay. That's going to happen today. They are going to start attacking John Durham because they don't want to talk about the substance that's in this motion.
When they start arguing in the media, Harry, this is confusing, it's gobbledygook, there's nothing here, these are old conspiracy theories. What they're really doing is hiding the reality that things are about to get intense.
We should conclude, I think, fairly that he is either lying or he is a simpleton in claiming that he cannot decipher a DNS server and the basic facts of an indictment, which I think even a layperson can read.
The New York Times calls the narrative wrong or old news, the latest example of the challenge created by a barrage of similar conspiracy theories from Mr. Trump and his allies. This is in a finding by the DOJ.
I know.
The special counsel has been allowed to operate.
Under
Joe
Department
Biden
of Justice guidelines
said he gets to finish out his job. He gets to do the job. And so is now, they believe Durham is part of a conspiracy.
A Trump conspiracy.
A Trump conspiracy.
Yes.
The guy
that didn't come out with the report until after the election. A year and a half now after election. Yeah. We still don't have the report.
New York Times goes further to say, upon close inspection, these narratives are often based on misleading presentation of the facts or outright misinformation. What have we talked about?
Yeah.
Misdismal, Department of Homeland Security. So now John Durham is committing terrorism, in the words of New York Times, because he is spreading misinformation about the U.S. government.
They're ignoring the pleadings here. The pleadings and the commentary are exactly right. This isn't hard to understand. He went in with false information. He told the FBI he didn't have a client, and he did.
And the CIA.
And he went in and said the same thing to the CIA, and he sold him this Russian phone nonsense, which Durham says the investigation shows that none of that was true.
Brian Stelter's daily email. Now, this is coming from, the disaster that is CNN right now. But he says, quote, the accusation was couched in vague and technical language in a court filing. Does this sound vague to you folks? Tech Executive One tasks researchers to mine internet data to establish an inference and narrative tying then candidate Trump to Russia. I think all of you understood what I just said.
What's so ironic here is that they had us take 3 days, Harry, to figure out how to spin this.
That's a reflection of the level of both venality and incompetence at CNN and within the mainstream media by and large. They are so politicized that they flee the truth, they flee reality.
The fact is, this is their game.
Yes.
They're going to try to tell their audience, the reason why we're not spending time on this, it's gobbledygook, confusing.
It was interesting, but they had to spend time on it.
They did have to address it because their friend Hillary Clinton is in legal jeopardy. And her whole team is in legal jeopardy. And that includes people who work for the White House right now.
They have indicted her lawyer for making statements to the FBI and CIA that were not accurate. Now, they've also said that these allegations were not true. And you know what they're really reacting to, the media is really reacting to? And that is that they said these allegations are not true.